The Problematic Prince. Anna started her morning in the garden. Since the spring came in full force, she had been spending most of her mornings out in the garden. The rich artificial flowers in Erna's hat were different from the ones she had yesterday, which were different from the ones she had the day before. She was changing those flowers every morning before she went out for her walk. Somehow, he found that side of her was cute. Bjorn would wake up and find Erna missing from the bed. It was not very pleasant for him. Bjorn leaned on the railing of the bedroom balcony and watched Erna walk the path that connected the great fountain with the Amidst river. Bjorn watched Erna carefully. Every time the wind gusted, her chemise dress clung to her body, revealing the welcome curves of her lovely body. Erna looked up at him, almost as if she sensed his lecherous study. How could such a small woman hold more presence than the great fountain, or any of the statues around it? "Oh, Bjorn, you're awake." Her voice echoed up to him, and he smiled. Their petty turmoil was a faded memory, and his world was calm again. The spring morning seemed more beautiful and peaceful after the fact. He waved to Erna as she climbed the steps leading into the mansion, admiring the fluttering tails of her ribbons and flowers. "Bjorn," Erna called out, knocking before coming into her own bedroom. "Look at you, all worn out." Bjorn stroked Erna's cheek with the back of a couple fingers. The tips of his fingers brushed her cheeks and showed a little playfulness that was at odds with her calm expression. "I think I need to work on my stamina, though." "Stamina?" "Well, whenever we have sex, I would always fall right to sleep after, because I am so exhausted." "I'm a bit sorry for that," Erna said calmly. The corners of Bjorn's lips curled as he looked down at his shy but brazen wife. "You work so hard on everything you do. It's no wonder my shoulders are getting tired. I'm starting to think I should exercise a little more too." "No, you don't have to at all." Erna was still smiling, even as she acted serious. Bjorn laughed and let his wife go. "Get ready, Erna. There is someone you need to meet." All she got for emptying the cookie jar was a thin stack of papers that looked like a small book. She looked at the bank book in her hand with a frown. It had her name on it and the amount of money that had been deposited, but she couldn't believe that this little booklet was replacing all her money. She knew that people in the city liked to keep their money in the bank, but she never thought she would be one of those people, not until Bjorn introduced her to the Frere bank employee in her study. Erna looked at her empty cookie jar regretfully. It had been a memento from her time before she knew Bjorn and the circumstances that had led to their marriage. It was a symbol of her past efforts and a promise she had made. "Don't you like your new cookie jar?" Bjorn said, motioning to the bank book. Bjorn sat with his arms loosely crossed. Erna looked at him, then to the bank book, then back at him again, then nodded a little. "I liked the old way better. Can't we get it back?" "Now, Erna, you need to let go of the cookie jar and embrace civilized society." "But this paper doesn't look like money at all." "No, but it represents your money. See your name here?" "Even so, what if the bank misuses my money? What if they lose it? What if they don't give it back to me?" Erna looked at Bjorn with mistrust in her eyes. "Don't fret, they won't keep your money from you." "What about if they go bankrupt?" "I heard that's another way people end up losing their money." Erna became more serious, concerned that the bank would go bankrupt and completely oblivious to the fact that the owner sat right next to her. "It's good to have that suspicion, Erna. I don't think you will ever get scammed." At the mention of getting scammed, Erna's eyes went so wide. "Could you please not say that? I really hate that word." When Erna looked at Bjorn with a stern face, Bjorn became mischievous. "Oh, you don't want me to say scam? Is scam a painful word for you, Erna? I guess I can stop saying scam." "Bjorn," Erna pouted. "If the bank goes bankrupt, I will make sure you get your money back first, so don't worry about it. Your snowman might keep your money in one place, but the new cookie jar will increase in value. Really? I will be getting more money? Erna's eyes went wide. Will I really get more money, even if I leave it alone? Erna clearly had no clue about interest rates. She looked at him with a mixture of surprise and doubt. Bjorn started to wonder about the place Erna had grown up. Had they really raised such an ignorant lady? Calmly, Bjorn went on to explain deposits and interest rates. Erna listened to him intently, with wide, wondrous eyes and a desire to learn. When he was done, Erna was so excited and decided that she was going to hang her bank book next to her bed. "Thank you, Bjorn. I will cherish it." Erna smiled brighter than ever. She packed her bank book into the snowman cookie jar. It seemed like she was still too stubborn to completely abandon that jar. "Why don't you use the safe and leave that old thing? It might be old, but it's precious to me. I don't want to throw it away. It was a gift from my grandfather." Erna carefully placed the jar in her lap. "He got it for me when I was 8 years old, the first birthday after my mother passed. He said he wanted me to smile just like the snowman on the cookie jar. It's more precious now than ever. The snowman has melted away and my grandfather is no longer here. I want to keep this by my side for as long as possible." Even as Erna shared her heartbreaking memory, she kept smiling. Bjorn felt a little embarrassed. He could not expect Erna to throw the cookie jar away now and so simply nodded. "Oh, Bjorn, isn't it time for you to leave? You said you had a meeting with the directors of the bank." "It's fine. I might cancel." Bjorn leaned back against his chair. "No, don't." Erna got up and shook her head violently. "Go. Work hard and earn me lots more interest." Bjorn laughed, seeing the resolute ambition of his wife. "Go now." Bjorn couldn't stand the pressure from his wife. He had created a monster. He had to use this to his advantage, teasing her with interest whenever he wanted her to do anything dirty. "Not too long ago we had our first fight," Erna was saying, bringing up the shameful event. Erna had been talking nonstop for the last hour and showed no signs of slowing. Duchess Arsene looked up from the book she had been reading for the first time since Erna had arrived, right on time for her Wednesday intrusion. "I'm guessing you were horribly defeated." "No, Grandma. I think I won, but not on purpose." "Really?" "Really." The maids and servants had placed bets on who would hold out the longest. My maid, Lisa, was the only one to choose me, and because everyone bet on Bjorn, like you, Grandma, Lisa won a very sizable pot. She even bought me chocolates to say thank you. The Duchess saw the proud smile on Erna's face and knew it to be true. She laughed at the ridiculousness of it. It was clear that Erna had no chance of being a dignified princess, talking about marital problems to others. Not like Gladys, she would never have shared the details of any argument with Bjorn. She was certainly proving to be not as fun as Erna. Erna slowly began to open up and share details about the fight. The Duchess closed her book and placed it on the table, along with her reading glasses. As the Duchess listened to the story, she stroked Charlotte, who purred in satisfaction. It did not seem like a very dignified thing to do, to share the details of the fight, and by the end of it, even though Erna had won, it felt like Erna was not in a favorable position. "My dear, why do you like Bjorn so much?" Erna was stunned by the question and looked at the Duchess, not entirely sure how to respond. All these stories Erna had shared with the Duchess made the woman think that Erna had a very deep crush on her husband, but her husband did not share the same feelings. It seemed like a very one-sided relationship. For most men, it's all about the looks. A man is nothing but a face, and your husband is very gifted in this regard. Yes? Erna didn't know if she should agree or question. Just because a man seems pleasant enough on the outside does not mean he is pleasant on the inside. There is no universal law that dictates that something bad on the outside is bad on the inside, or vice versa. It's always best to try and get yourself a man that's at least handsome on the outside, so then if he turns out bad on the inside, at least he's good looking. A handsome face alone can bring joy, and that joy can help to create patience. I'm sure you understand well enough, being with Bjorn and all. Sure, but don't expect too much from him. Otherwise, you will have more of these arguments, and inevitably, he will get bored of you and the constant fighting. Erna grew anxious as the Duchess speared her emotions with the sharp words. She thought she knew the Duchess quite well, but it seems like her arrogance has only bred ignorance. There was quite the disparity between this urban grandmother and her own rural grandmother. There was something about the old woman that reminded Erna of Bjorn. She thought it would be enough to give her strength to come and face her week after week. I can see that I am right, am I not? A mischievous smile came across the Duchess's face, a smile that reminded Erna of Bjorn. Actually, yes, it is a bit like that, Erna murmured, cheeks blushing. The Duchess looked bewildered at Erna. She had been fun to tease, but looked all too seriously. She had been caught off guard with the Duchess's statements. That was wholly unexpected. The Duchess burst into laughter. The laughter reverberated all about the guest parlor. She thought that Bjorn had reached rock bottom and was plumbing the depths for anyone that would marry him. At least, it seemed like he made the choice out of desperation and was just giving up. The Duchess smiled for a long time while looking at Erna. "What are you staring at? So far away?" the Duchess asked. The Duchess Arsène left the guest parlor. Erna followed in her footsteps, quietly contemplating. The room was decorated with light green wallpaper, where it could be seen in between all the portraits and pictures. It felt like this room was an exhibition, recording an entire family history. Erna followed on after the Duchess Arsène with a little excitement. This was the first time she had seen anything of the mansion beyond the guest parlor. "Is this the Duke of Arsène?" asked Erna, carefully. She stood before a large portrait that hung in the middle of the wall. The Duchess nodded as she came to stand next to Erna. The resemblance to Bjorn was uncanny. "I was quite the famous beauty when I was younger. I was getting proposals from all over the world. From all those suitors, Duke Arsène must have been the finest of them all. He certainly made a good first impression. He must have had a great personality. Well, let's just say I was luckier than you," the Duchess said playfully, moving away to the next painting. Bjorn," Erna said, recognizing the twins in the picture. "Can you guess which one he is?" Erna became serious and studied the painting. It was very difficult to tell when they were so young, but the Duchess took Erna around to other paintings made as the twins grew up. She could see their personalities come through as they aged, and Erna was able to accurately guess which one was her husband. No matter how much a man is a face and you like that face, you must not openly show your feelings. Your husband is very good in this regard. You have to learn how to hide that you like them. "Yes?" Erna asked, confused. "It means pushing when you need to push and pulling when you need to pull. Right now, Erna, all you're doing is pulling, giving Bjorn what he wants." "What? Really, child? Did you get married to a man without ever having been in a relationship before?" "What do you mean, Grandma?" Erna said, looking like she was being punished. "Foolish girl," the Duchess said, clicking her tongue once more and turning back to the paintings. The Duchess took Erna back to the guest parlor, where they bid their farewells. "See you next week at the palace, Grandma." "I'm not going," the Duchess said sternly. "Of course. See you then, Grandma." The foolish child smiled brightly as she left, leaving the foolish statement in her wake. "Bjorn?" Erna cautiously peeked around the door. Bjorn was standing in front of a mirror, with servants around him, getting him ready, all looking at her. "May I come in?" "Looks like you already have," Bjorn laughed. The servants continued getting Bjorn ready as Erna came all the way into the room. Erna looked at her husband from a safe distance from the servants who were constantly in motion. He was choosing which cufflinks to wear. "I think this one would be better," Erna said. She thought it would have been best not to interfere, but she couldn't help herself. The onyx that Bjorn had picked out were lovely, but she wanted him to wear matching jewelry as her. Bjorn changed his mind and put the onyx back, picking up the blue sapphires. Erna looked at her husband and her eyes sparkled along with the sapphires. Bjorn's preparations were finished just as soon as a servant presented Bjorn with his jacket and gently placed it on his shoulders. Bjorn stepped away from the mirror and approached Erna. He really was more handsome than his grandfather. "I think what the adults say is mostly right," Erna whispered under her breath as she took Bjorn's outstretched hand. "What?" Bjorn said. "No, nothing. Let's go," Erna said, blushing a little. Prince Christian was eventually expelled from the study, where most of the men had gathered. He left with a sulky face. Isabel Dniester smiled like she knew and pointed to the furthest seat. It was next to Princess Greta, who was daintily sipping at her tea. The prince sighed as if displeased with having to sit next to his younger sister, but he obeyed his mother. Erna watched the Dniester family with curiosity. The Queen and Princess Louise were enveloped by quiet conversation. Princess Louise's children, a boy and a girl, were being looked after by their nanny. Prince Christian, who was frustrated at still being treated like a child, and Princess Greta, who was just having fun. All these faces, that all had some resemblance to one or two of the others, made Erna feel a little left out. There was no one here of her family, and she realized she missed her grandmother very much. People had said that Erna bore a very close likeness to her grandmother. Erna looked down to see Princess Louise's daughter clutching at the hem of her lacy dress, where gold thread made strange patterns. Erna thought she looked like Duke Heine, Louise's husband, but the smile was definitely from the child's mother. The same smile all the Dniesters seemed to have inherited. Erna let the little girl play with the hem of her dress to her heart's content. Then she began pulling on Erna's hand, as if trying to lead her somewhere. She pointed to a palm tree on the other side of the room. Erna got up and slowly walked the child around the room to the palm tree. Isabel watched the pair from over her fan. Louise, realizing who her child was with, called for the nanny. "Let them be, Louise," Isabel Dniester said. Erna and the child stood before the palm tree, and Erna listened intently to the little girl's mumbles and chatter. The whole thing made Isabel giggle. "I don't understand why you are so lenient with the Grand Duchess, Mother," Louise said, disappointingly. "Is there a reason not to be?" "Well, no, but..." Louise swallowed Gladys' name and sat tight-lipped. "I didn't know you loved children," Louise said to Erna when she came back with her daughter. "Is there any news of your having children yet?" "Louise, shush, they're still newlywed," Isabel said. "But now is the time." Gladys came back from her honeymoon with news of her pregnancy already. The mood in the room stiffened as Louise let slip the name. Louise realized that she had slipped up and looked at Erna, who looked startled. Louise had just crossed the line. She would have placed the blame on the pressure from her mother, who seemed to be taking Erna's side. "That's rude, Louise," Isabel Dniester said in a low voice that broke the delicate silence. "Apologize now." "Mother." "Now, Louise." Despite her daughter's stubbornness and stern look, there was not a child alive that could stand up against their mother. "I'm sorry," Louise said reluctantly. "I spoke without thinking. Please forgive me, Grand Duchess." Louise's face wrinkled in humiliation. "Oh, no, I'm fine. It's really all right," Erna flustered, not sure what she should do. "Thank you for understanding," Louise said. It was only when Erna met her pleading eyes that she finally showed a smile. "I'm so sorry for my daughter's rudeness," Isabel added with soft words. I think our father has changed his mind for sure, too, Leonid said. With narrowed eyes, Bjorn hit the ivory ball and watched it roll down the table with narrow eyes. It looked to be slightly out, and his 6-ball streak came to an end. That reading table, father kept it and uses it regularly, Leonid continued with a flat expression. He seemed like someone unconcerned with how far behind he was on the scoreboard. Reading table, the one Erna got him? At first, Bjorn had thought the gifts she had bought were ridiculous, but it turned out that they were very well received. His mother had even praised Erna for the gift of the pruning scissors, saying that she uses them very carefully. His Majesty the King of Lichen is easily swayed with gifts, Bjorn said, watching Leonid. The Grand Duchess seems like a nice enough person, Leonid said. I distinctly remember the Crown Prince saying he did not like Miss Hardy. It felt like a very firm opinion at the time, Bjorn said. Yes, I thought so at the time, but that was only because I did not know the Grand Duchess. Well, I must say that I am glad you have corrected your opinion, Bjorn said, laughing. Since you got yourself a good wife, have you thought about becoming a good husband? Bjorn frowned deeply at Leonid. Aren't you the one who asked me to play billiards, so I had to leave my wife in another room? Leonid sighed. So, what are you doing now? The bald eagles have broken their stubbornness, Bjorn said, raising the glass. They will not touch the government interest rate or the tax on securities. What do they want in return? Well, it would be most urgent for them to resolve the fiscal deficit with Lichen's funds. Apparently, they want to sell the Northern Railway, unless you have another card to play. What we're going to give and what we will receive in return, that's between you and Maxim. Leonid no longer asked. He knew well enough, Bjorn didn't like to get involved in things that weren't his business. Given Bjorn's attitude and the information he brought from last visit, he probably already had a plan of action. I'm suddenly curious, Leonid explained, deep in thought. If you added that bank job to the trip schedule, what the hell did you do on your honeymoon? I took care of business, if you would care not to pry, Your Highness. Bjorn, I think you should. She's my wife, Leonid. Bjorn cut him off with cold words. I know her better than anyone, and I'm actually a pretty good husband, when you get to know her and her needs. Leonid stared at Bjorn for a long moment, then laughed at Bjorn's words. As expected, they are similar, Bjorn thought, and it deepened his mood.